to Virtual Servers with Linode. My name is John Tesmer, and I have some disclaimers for you. I have an account with Linode, but I'm not giving you guys like my referral code or anything like that. So if you sign up, you're on your own. And this is not about setting up anything like Zen or any other kind of stuff on host operating systems. This is all about working with servers that are virtualized sort of once you get them at that point. So we'll just go ahead and get started. I'm a wannabe Unix longbeard. My wife will not let me grow my beard past this point. This is about as long as I get. I started working with Linux at about kernel 0.96 back in high school for me, and I've never really gotten as much of the knowledge as I want to, but I love the principles and the theories and the concepts behind it. How you can pipe things together and very simple commands that are very powerful that do one thing really well, and that whole concept. I work for this company called APQC. We're a nonprofit. We do benchmarking. We manage and measure business processes. So it's very boring and it has nothing to do with my passion at all. It's a personal problem I'm struggling with. If you have any problems or any solutions, let me know. Previously, I've worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers and IBM. At PricewaterhouseCoopers, I was a management consultant. I taught Java programming to entry-level hires. At IBM, I managed technical projects. I built software. I led conversion projects from one system to another. So I've been doing this stuff for about 10, 15 years. That's my site, and that's my Twitter handle. My clout on Twitter, I just found out about clout this conference period. My clout is 5, which means I'm kind of like a total 0 in the Twitter world, but I follow some interesting people. So, from a presentation perspective, this is the audience. This is who I think you guys are, and this is who I'm going to be talking to. So developers, people who are working with code on a regular basis, you're looking for some kind of environment to test, or even your production environments. So if you have something that you want to develop, or you have something that a customer that you want to put up, and you don't want it to be on that server under your desk that's running under like DYN DNS, you can use this. Application owners, so people who have no idea what a server is or what servers are for. A friend of mine brought this. She had a WordPress site that was plagued by all kinds of performance issues with their old host. So we moved her to a virtual host, virtual server, and she was very happy. So application owners, and then curious geeks looking for new playthings. So new distros. If you want to set up a honeypot, this is an excellent way to go. Stuff like that. So let's talk just a little bit about what a virtual server is. A virtual server is not the same as virtual hosting. Virtual hosting is when you pay $10 a month to somebody like DreamHost or some kind of a web host. Basically, what they're going to do is create a virtual directory for you in an Apache server. You're going to fight for resources with whomever is on that server with you. If you're sharing MySQL databases, then if somebody locks up the database, then you are locked up as well. So that's virtual hosting. You're basically sharing applications. A virtual server, on the other hand, is a physical machine that's been sliced up into intricate little parts. Typically, we see slices as many as 40 on a physical host. I know Linode, when you buy their cheapest entry-level one, it's 40 slices on a host. So their machines are super beefy. I suspect they probably have like 32 gigs of RAM. They're big, big, big machines. A virtual server has an operating system that has been specifically customized and tuned for virtualization. So it knows how to handle multiple requests for network, for disk, for all that stuff, and how to manage and mitigate all the problems that come up about it. Zen is an example. Obviously, Windows Server has some virtualization features. There's also bolt-on stuff, VMware, whatever. The key about the virtual servers, though, and what you end up having to fight about, 99% of the time is you fight about CPU. Because you get a really carved out thing of bandwidth, and you get a really carved out thing of memory, and you have a whole carved out amount of bandwidth that throughput that you get. But CPU generally is, you fight with other people about it. But you share the same resources as that physical box. So if there are, like I said, 40 virtual hosts on a machine, everybody gets their own chunk of bandwidth and their own chunk of memory, like 512 megs, and they all fight for CPU with sort of a minimum generally. Virtual servers are the exact same thing as physical servers from a use perspective. I mean, once you have a virtual server, it's basically just you're sitting in front of a regular machine. You shouldn't be able to tell the difference. You shouldn't be able to tell that you're running on some big box in the middle of nowhere with 39 other people. The only time you'll ever realize a problem is if somebody is hogging all the CPU for an extended period of time. And in that case, typically your provider is going to step in and either reboot them or do some kind of mitigation. But again, anything that you could do on a regular physical piece of hardware, you can generally do on a virtual server. I've never run into any kind of limitations on my own. Linode itself, I chose Linode because of all the features. The fact it had a local data center. I say local, it's in Atlanta, and most of my customers' traffic was in the southeast region, so it just made sense. They use these 4 processor Zen instances. They have this out-of-band console shell, which is incredible. I've actually bricked my machine and used the console shell to reboot it and immediately go back in and kill all the stuff that I did stupid. I've got a dedicated IP address, which is sort of a given. And this managed DNS is a nice feature. It's something you don't have to worry about. You don't have to get a third party to manage your DNS for you. And they support all kinds of different operating systems. I'll get into that in a second. So let me just show you what Linode looks like, and then we'll talk a little bit about getting started with Linode. So if you go to linode.com, and this projector is, I think, like 800 by 600, so I don't get much on it, but this is their website. And one incredible thing about them is they have a ton of documentation. They're very helpful. They have a lot of support out there, so if you're doing something you're not exactly sure of, or you've never done it before, instead of Googling for a bunch of stuff, they have a lot of documentation that really helps you out. So you basically sign up. It's super easy. I'm going to go ahead and log in so you can see what the control panel looks like. So basically I have one machine on this account, and it's called Telly because the first thing I started doing on it was I ran an asterisk server on here that was it was a phone server for my wife's law business. So that, I mean, it's not a web server obviously, but that was probably one of the coolest things I ever did, was completely virtualizing her phone system. This supported it without a problem. I have the basic entry-level Linode. I have 512 megs of RAM. I'm in Atlanta. That's my IP address. From within here, you can actually go and set up as many different disk images as will fit in the allotted disk space that you have. So if you have 16 gigs of disk space, you could create a series of 4 gigabyte disk images with whatever kind of purposes you have in them. So if you wanted to create a database server to do some testing, or you wanted to create a web server or a VoIP server, you could create these different images and then turn them on and off at will. You can't run them simultaneously, but you can turn them on and off as you need to. And right now I just have this multi-purpose server that's taking up most of my disk. So when you sign up with Linode, the first thing you're going to end up doing, aside from setting up your DNS and making sure that your registrar knows where to find your name servers and configuring your DNS, you're going to create these disk images. And let me actually show you their website because they have some really cool screens that summarize this process.
What's going to happen if you have simultaneous demand on your disk images?
You only run one at a time. So like right now, I'm running this multi-purpose server image, and I've got my swap image. These I'm not really running right now. They're just sort of out there. They're just little sort of test environments for me. Let me go back to there.
So if you wanted to run, if you wanted to have 2 different versions of PHP, for instance, and you were doing some testing, you could have 2 different disk images to have those versions, and swap back and forth to test the script against. Exactly.
You would basically turn off one and then bring up another one, and you could do as many as you wanted, but you can't run multiple at the same time. So anyways, this distro wizard, this just gives you an example of all the different distributions that they support. And when you sign up, you get brought into this kind of thing, and you get to pick whatever kind of wizard, whatever kind of distribution you want. Personally, I like Ubuntu Server. It's simple, and I'm a Debian-esque kind of person, so it works great for me. You set up the disk image like I mentioned, and then you create your swap space. You set up the root password, and then it basically boots up the image for you, so you don't actually have to install the operating system yourself. If I'm not mistaken, they let you do that if you really are that kind of hardcore. You can set up whatever kind of OS you wanted, but I think you have to open a ticket and they walk you through it. But they're setting up that initial image is really, really easy. The other cool thing that they have is if you know you're going to be doing a particular function, particular use case, like if you know you're going to run WordPress and you don't want to mess around with setting up MySQL and Apache and Memcache and all this other stuff, they have these things called stack scripts, which are basically written by other people in the community. And a stack script is instructions on how to configure the entire operating system, all the installed packages, everything. So you could run a stack script at the time you create your account that creates an image with all the stuff you need. And then when you power it up, you basically you get this machine that already has Apache, that already has mail server, that already has database server. It's already got all that stuff set up for you. And there are a ton of stack scripts. Now, it's only as good as the person who wrote the stack script, because the guy that wrote the one that I tried out for a friend of mine configured Apache in a way that was not optimal for the amount of RAM that these particular slices have. So I had to really go and tweak, because you only get a certain little bit of RAM. But the stack scripts themselves, there are a ton of them, and they are pretty fantastic. So let me go and show you some of them. So you can create your own stack script. So if you have like an image that you want to replicate over and over again, like let's say you're trying to set up a cluster of machines, you can actually create a stack script that created all of your front-end web servers in exactly the same way, exactly the same configuration every single time. I've only used stack scripts a couple of times because you only do it when you first set up your machine. So there's a LAMP stack, there's a LEMP stack, there's a WordPress stack, a Drupal stack. I mean, there's all kinds of them. So you basically don't have to make the decision about what version to pick, how to configure it to work with the database. All that stuff is already done. You just flip the switch, deploys it all, and then you get it. Now, the risk occurs there that your root, you are responsible for all of the settings in that machine. So firewall, memory configuration, connection pooling, any of that stuff is your responsibility. You have to make sure it works. If it doesn't work, you're going to know pretty quick. Or if somebody can get into it, you're going to find out pretty quick. But similarly, if you ratchet it down, you are way more secure and way more reliable than any shared hosting environment ever. And the price is right. It's $20 a month. I mean, for some people pay for virtual or for shared hosting $10 a month, and you get a certain limited amount of stuff. You get a ton more with a virtual host, Linode or any of the other ones. Managing it is like I said, something you really have to work at. You have to make sure that you spend the time to tweak your firewall rules, manage your database, all that stuff. But fortunately, there's all kinds of support in the community to make sure that you know exactly what you're doing. So let me go back over here to the presentation. All right, now I want to show you one of the coolest features of Linode. It's their, what I'll just call ICE. It's their in case of emergency system. And basically what they do is, because you get a slice of a machine, they connect to the console of that machine an SSH, basically a connection. So instead of SSHing into the SSH running on your machine, you SSH into this console thing that gives you, as if you were sitting in front of a keyboard and a mouse. So you can actually do out-of-band management of your Linode. So I'm going to bring up Putty. I'm sure you guys have all used Putty before. I can find my mouse. And you can see here I've got a couple of different sites up here. So I'm going to bring up the console. If I can remember the password, then it's kind of a problem. I'll have to remember that. But you basically get this 80 by 25 console access directly into your keyboard and mouse on your machine, or keyboard and screen on your machine, as if you were sitting right there in the data center typing directly on the machine, which is helpful if you bork your network, like if you put in a firewall rule that prevents you from accessing SSH. So I haven't personally done it, but it's possible. So you can also issue commands directly to the administrator to do things like reboot your entire machine. So if it becomes unusable for whatever reason, you can actually go in here and issue this reboot command. So, and then when I click this, that machine will just come down. So that console application that I was talking about before, it'll log in as root, issue the commands to shut down the machine gracefully, and then shut the machine down. So I don't want to do that right now. But you can see the last time that it was rebooted was in May. And it started in 1974, so it's been running for quite some time. They provide a lot of really cool sort of analytics for you, stuff you'd expect to see. So there's CPU usage, and obviously I don't use much. This is less than 1% of a CPU, so I don't use much of that. I don't use much network at all. This particular machine right now is no longer running an asterisk server. It's running a Subversion server for some software development projects I'm running. And it also runs like track and for a really small work group I have. But then it also shows you disk, and you can see spikes and stuff is what you basically look for to make sure that nothing funky is going on. What else can I show you about Linode?
Do they have a mobile app or any third-party mobile connections to be able to reboot?
They have an iPhone
Yes.
app.
Oh,
Do they
yeah?
have an iPhone app?
Yeah, they do.
I've never
pretty
had
much
to do it.
everything you
Yeah.
can do in the console there, you can do on the iPhone.
Cool.
Oh, yeah, almost everything you do on this, you can do on the iPhone app.
Excellent.
Also, I don't know if you're going to point it out too, but you were talking about the CPU and memory. Like if you, I have a Linode box, and I was uploading a whole crap ton of stuff to it, like hundreds of gigabytes of stuff. And of course, the disk and the CPU got really busy. And it actually sent me an email, hey, just FYI, you're out of your normal workload. Like, that's cool, but just so
We
you
just
know.
want to let you know. Yeah, I've gotten one of those too. Same exact problem.
Yeah, you can set those thresholds as well.
Yeah.
If you know you normally use like 2 CPUs full out.
Yeah. And for the $20 a month, you get 200 gigabytes. So I have a friend that runs a pretty popular blog on it, and she rarely exceeds like 2 gigabytes of traffic. So 200 is plenty for most of what we do. The really cool thing about that is she actually was on HostGator for a really long time and ran into this problem where the database kept just freezing. So somebody else that was on her host had written some script that just was locking up the database all the time. And her WordPress was suffering. So I said, well, let's just move you en masse. So I put her in this Linode, which was great. She was real happy. But then her sister was like, I host HostGator too, and I'm having similar problems. I hate this, blah, blah, blah. So I just flipped on, it was Apache plus suexec plus some other configuration thing. And basically now she has her own virtual hosting. So her sister runs on her Linode as well and shares all her network bandwidth and all that stuff. So for that particular use case where it was a family that had a couple different web applications they wanted to run, they now share it. So now they're paying $20 a month total, but they're getting all their domains, all their email, all that stuff. And I've never ever seen this thing go down, ever. You guys?
No.
Never. Reliability is good, right?
Oh, yeah.
I run primary DNS on there, which is
Yeah.
probably not a good idea. But occasionally I get spikes from people trying to hit it when they shouldn't.
Yeah.
But never had it really go down per se.
Yeah. And I use their DNS for all my hosts that I host with them, which is great. I mean, they provide it. It's super easy to use. You can configure pretty much anything you want with it related to your host. And this is on my account. I don't have DNS on here, but on her account where I'd set it up, all of the domains are all set up here, and they're all, it works. It just works. That's the cool thing about it. Not a problem. So what are some use cases you guys are looking at? Any kind of things you want to throw at a virtual host, virtual server?
I had a question.
Sure.
Like when you're installing your software, like your Subversion, How do you install that then? Do you have a command line you can go to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's basically just like as if you had a machine in your own data center. So when you start out, actually, you don't have SSH access. You have to go in through that console port and configure your, or actually no, you do. So you set the root password and you get your disk image created, and then you can SSH in as root, which I immediately suggest you disable that and move your SSH to some other port because people are scanning all the time. But you get full root access. So once you're in there, you can do whatever you want.
Set up your users and stuff. Is the only way to get a console is coming in out of band? Or?
No, you can use SSH. I mean, and that's probably the best way to do it. Because if you're using the console way, it's a little slower and it's limited to 80 by 25, and
it's like it's literally like having a serial console.
Yeah.
You don't want to use it as your primary way to get in the machine, but it's there if you need it.
Yeah.
You know, set up SSH. What I do is I've got Webmin running.
Yeah.
Just a free like control panel type thing.
Yeah. Definitely a good suggestion because you really have to keep up with stuff. You don't want to leave an exploit open and have a box become a zombie.
So you basically have an unsecured server on the net.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's no firewall rules turned on by default. I mean, you get everything. It's it's all the way. Yeah.
I have a question about the Asterisk implementation you were running before. You said you fully virtualized it. Who was the provider of the actual?
Teleax.
Okay.
You ever heard of them?
Yeah.
I've been using them for like 5 years now, since 2006, like 4 years.
Okay.
Never had a problem with them.
There was no kind of latency or anything?
There was, but it wasn't enough to cause a problem. And that's actually one of the cool reasons about this being in Atlanta is that Teleax has a POP in Atlanta, a point of presence in Atlanta. So between my server, my Linode server, and then the Teleax server, I think it was like 20 milliseconds. And then from Tampa to Atlanta it was like 50. So altogether it was 70 milliseconds round trip for a packet, a voice packet, and you couldn't tell.
How many lines were you running?
We had 2 simultaneous conversations at most. But I think we tested with up to 4 and it worked fine. But we were using not 711. We were using one of the lower bandwidth codecs.
Okay.
Like one of the 8 or 16K codecs. But they don't do that anymore. They moved to a regular office now, and they have like a fax machine. They're stodgy now. Any other questions?
Yeah, right now I'm running my SSH server with some shellless accounts so I can give SFTP access to my clients. And they don't understand what SSH keys even are, so I have to turn on password authentication. But what I'm wondering is if there's any way that I can like get 2 SSH servers running simultaneously, so I can have
on different
one
ports, or
well, ideally, I'd like to have it so that they can just use normal SFTP and not have to configure ports or anything.
I don't know the answer to that question. I think hypothetically you could probably run 2 SSH servers on different ports. I don't think that'd be a problem. Has anybody ever done that?
It's not a problem.
It's what?
It's not a problem to run multiple SSH servers. The configuration is going to be a bit weird, and I'm still not sure why. So.
Yeah.
I mean, generally, it's really designed for only running it once.
Yeah.
You know, things you want to do is disable root password access,
Yeah.
disable root logins, period.
Yeah.
You know, create a normal user account, then you know, sudo to root when you need it.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got like 10, 15 clients on there that I limit them only to SFTP access. Most of them don't even have shell access. They just need to upload files and stuff
Right.
to static websites. I haven't had a problem with that.
And I think you can have both. You don't have to limit yourself to only keys or only passwords.
Yeah, I know what I'm saying is
Right.
though, I want to have only key off on some accounts.
You've exceeded my knowledge of that.
You might
wish
be
I
able
could
to
help
do
you.
that with PAM with the pluggable authentication, but that's the extent of my knowledge of that is then I'd have to ask somebody else.
You know, I would be surprised if there wasn't a way to configure saying like this account needs to have the public key. These accounts can log in with just password.
Okay.
So let me just show you real quick my SSH config. don't think there's anything like super sensitive in here. I hope you guys can't memorize like really long strings of numbers. But this is the actually this is the wrong one. I want this is. So, I've disabled root login. Obviously, we don't want people logging in as root. And then let's see what else I did. Probably the thing I'm most proud of myself about is setting up that SFTP with a change root, so that when users log in, they only can see the folder to which they're supposed to see things. In this case, it's limited to like their user folder in my web directory. So if I've fucked this up, somebody please tell me, because I would not want to know. I would want to find out now instead of like by it being hacked.
I'm going to interject here and say this is probably how you set certain users to be public key only and certain other users to be password only.
Yeah, I
Is
bet.
these little match root blocks.
Yeah, I bet you could probably
Yeah.
also do match user.
Yeah, match user and then whatever kind of configuration you wanted. So basically all my users that I want to have in that change root, I just put them in the Unix group rooted, and they're good. So again, best practice, and this goes for any kind of server, whether it's virtual or not, is definitely hide your root. But this is all, you know, this is, you can Google this stuff and be done with it. And I'm a good man. So. Any other questions? Any other use cases? Yeah?
So one of the other nice things about Linode is, say for example, your needs grow beyond a single box. You can have multiple boxes within the same data center,
Yeah.
and in those boxes, like say you need to separate your web front end, your application tier, and your database server. You can have all of those three on in the same data center, and you can use internal IPs
Yeah.
to communicate among them, so it doesn't count against your monthly traffic at all.
Yep. Which is super. Is it a separate VLAN? Or?
Yeah.
It's not a VLAN. It's just a separate network backbone that doesn't go to the public internet.
Right, but I mean, if I get on that same network he's on, do I see his traffic or?
No, it's all VLAN off.
Yeah.
I've set it up before. You don't, your hard cable is you and your other box, that's it.
So that's
another thing too, I'll point out, I just discovered on mine, I think for an extra $6 a month, it's less than 10. They do full-blown disk level backups.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
And it's like saved my bacon just a couple of weeks ago. And it's literally ext2 dumps of the entire image, and you can just restore it. It's like a snapshot. Yeah, it's somewhere. I don't know. Well, anyway, it's totally worth the extra $6.
I think it's here.
It's in the add-on
Yeah,
set.
backups.
Yeah. And the other interesting thing is if you need more IP addresses, so like if you have multiple SSL.
It does it daily, and then, well, you can read it there. It's awesome.
So for you guys that are using, how would you compare it to Slisos? I mean, if you have experience.
I've used both and they're interchangeable.
Okay. I mean, because I'm happy with Slisos, but I'm kind of price-wise, but I see that they're basically the same price. Is that, you said that base $20 was a $256?
No, it's 512 megs around.
Oh, so
They're
so
direct competitors, and the price are only going to be different by like $1 or $2.
Well, no, it's $20 for a 256 with Slisos.
Oh, really?
So in Linode you get 512. Used to be you got 384, but they just had like a birthday and they upped everybody, which was awesome because I woke up and like I wasn't swapping anymore. Yeah.
What's that initial shell script, when you first brought that up?
The shell scripts?
Yeah.
Sure.
It's
The
like a version
stack
of
scripts
that.
or shell scripts?
It just said Windows shell is Lish.
Oh, yeah, that's another out-of-band administration console.
That's the one in case you shut down your network and you still need to get access to the box.
Yeah.
That's the one that's directly connected to the serial console.
Is it like that?
Well, there's one that's also like Ajax-y, right?
That's the web version that you don't have to use PuTTY for.
Yeah, the problem I
It's
found with the web
console
version
type.
is you can't send escape, so I
Yeah.
couldn't bin anything. I could edit files, I couldn't save it.
Well, generally the only time you're going to use that anyway is when you F up your IP tables and you just lock yourself out,
Yeah.
and then you just basically need to run IP tables.
Well, I didn't know about the console. I didn't know you could SSH to a console. I thought there was only this one.
Yes.
And I had too many attempts on my
Oh my God.
422.
To use
and I couldn't
Nano,
get in.
it's a horror.
So, I mean, it's probably one of the coolest virtual server type people I've ever seen around. I loathe one-on-one. I will not use them. I used to have an actual physical box at what's that place on Gandy? Sago. I had a box with them for a long time, and that was cool. But it was like $75 a month, and it just seemed like a waste. But this is, it meets every one of my needs, and it's great for my customers as well. So. We're at time, guys. Do you have any other questions? I'm around. I'm actually in this room for the next presentation, so I'll be here. Thank you.